We're plotting the path for a Bills win over the Ravens in Week 1 today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. I am excited to break down this Bills matchup against the Ravens from every angle. And if you are new this year, welcome. I'm excited for you to be part of this journey. And I'm excited for you to see how we get ready for a football game. If you've been an everydayer for a while now, welcome back. You know exactly what we are going to get into right now. So the Bills are at home for Week 1 to host the Baltimore Ravens. The game will be played on Sunday, September 7th at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. This will be the final home opener at the old Highmark Stadium. You can watch the game on NBC. Mike Tirico is on the play-by-play. Chris Collinsworth is your game analyst. I know everybody loves him. And Melissa Stark is the sideline reporter. I know that Chris Collinsworth doesn't get a lot of love from Bills Mafia. I'm not his biggest fan, but I do love the presentation of a game on NBC. I think they do the best job. Again, I don't love Collinsworth, but camera angles, replays, I think they do a phenomenal job. This will be the 14th ever meeting between the Bills and the Ravens. In the 13 meetings prior, the Bills are 6-7 against Baltimore. Sean McDermott is 3-2 against the Lamar Jackson Ravens, and the Bills have actually won 3 of the last 4 against Baltimore. Now, both teams enter this game 0-0. It's Week 1. Last season, the Bills went 13-4 and won the AFC East and were the number 2 seed in the playoffs. Baltimore went 12-5. They won the AFC North, and they were the 3 seed in the AFC playoffs. Head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, John Harbaugh, 62 years old. He's entering his 18th season as Baltimore's head coach. They've won a lot of games, 172 and 104 in those 17 seasons to this point. They've went to the playoffs 12 times. They've won 6 AFC North titles. They've been to the AFC Championship game 4 times. And, of course, they won the Super Bowl in 2012. Now, what's really interesting about John Harbaugh's arc in Baltimore is the playoff success that he had early in his tenure compared to late. 2008 through 2014, they were 10-5 in the playoffs. They missed it in 15, 16, and 17. And then since 2018, they're 3-6 in the postseason, 3-6 over their last 9 postseason games. And this is something that I actually brought up on Bill Squad on Thursday with Kevin Ostreicher. He came and hung out with us for like 10, 15 minutes. And the question that I really wanted to ask Kevin was, you know, we live in Bills land, and there's obviously a lot of pressure and expectation for there to be a breakthrough under Sean McDermott with Josh Allen. And, you know, the Bills have actually had postseason success. They've won at least one playoff game every year since 2020. And the only team that can say they've done that is the Chiefs, other than the Bills. Josh Allen's been unbelievable in the postseason. And I asked him, I said, you know, look, how is Ravens Nation processing the generational quarterback that is Lamar Jackson, his poor performances in the postseason, and how that postseason success has just not been there for Harbaugh lately, because we get so wrapped up in, Bills land. It's, this is a somewhat similar situation in Baltimore, other than their quarterback hasn't played well in the postseason and their team hasn't had nearly the same level of success in the postseason that the Bills have had. And the Bills have bounced the Ravens twice. The Bills got to get past Kansas City. Baltimore's got to get past Buffalo and Kansas City. So don't miss that conversation on Bill Squad yesterday. And, it's enlightening to kind of be more aware of what's kind of going on across the league and realize that, there's another fan base and another team that feels some type of way about their very successful, long-tenured head coach with a great quarterback and where that's gotten them to this point. Kansas City's really kind of spoiling a lot for these other teams in the AFC. The quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens is Lamar Jackson, who is 28 years old, was a first-round pick, number 32 overall in 2018 out of Louisville. 6'2", 205 pounds. He has started 94 career games, and the Ravens are 70-24 in those starts. He was terrific last year. The MVP runner-up, completed 67% of his passes, 245 passing yards per game, 41 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions, and a passer rating of 119.6. And that doesn't even get into the unbelievable rushing stats that he has as well. Giving you his metrics from last year. He was number 1 in EPA per dropback. He threw deep 13% of throws. That's 7th most in the NFL. So he will push the ball down the field. Yards after catch accounted for 50% of Lamar's passing yards. That's 16th. So middle of the pack there. Does not throw to his first read very often. Only 62% of throws to his first read. That's 26th in the NFL. Catchable ball percentage, 75% of the time. That's middle of the pack at 15th. Turnover-worthy throw rate, only 1.2%. That was the best in the NFL last year. So a guy that can make a lot of plays, not put the ball in harm's way. It's pretty impressive. Pressured on 36% of dropbacks. That was 6th highest in the NFL. But like Josh Allen, does not let pressure turn into sacks. Only 11.8% of pressure resulted in a sack. That was 3rd best in the league last year. They run play action 29% of the time. That's 9th most frequent in the NFL. They run screens 11.5% of the time. That is 15th in the NFL. Lamar had a great season last year, obviously. The numbers speak for themselves, and the efficiency metrics are also off the charts. Number 1 in EPA when pressured. Number 2 in EPA when not pressured. Number 4 in EPA with play action. Number 1 with EPA without play action. Number 1 when he gets the ball out in under 2.5 seconds. Number 1 when he holds the ball over 2.5 seconds. So the situational splits are just anywhere you look, you see unbelievable efficiency in production. There's not a lot of chinks in the armor, but there is one spot. And credit to Warren Sharp and Eric Turner of Cover One, who have recently brought this up. And I want to get into it as well. If there is an area where Lamar Jackson has a dip in efficiency and a dip in production, it's when he faces a 5-man rush and man coverage behind it. 23rd in EPA per dropback when he faces a 5-man rush and man coverage played behind it, which is exactly the style of defense that we've been talking about the Bills becoming. Whether it's how that became more prevalent in what the Bills did in the postseason last year, the hiring of Ryan Nielsen to the coaching staff, or the personnel additions that they made to the defense, it all has been trending towards the Bills being a 5-man pressure team that plays a lot of man coverage. And then, of course, that's affirmed if you watch the team at training camp, if you watch even the preseason games. You saw this become part of what the Bills want to be in terms of their identity defensively. Now, will it be the fullest version of itself in week 1? I think obviously you're missing your two of your biggest investments defensively, your first-round pick Maxwell Harrison at corner and Michael Hoyt, your edge rusher. Those are important pieces of this defense kind of becoming the best version of itself. But it is interesting to kind of see where Lamar's had some challenges and what type of defense the Bills are aspiring to become. All right, we're going to talk more about the Ravens offense beyond Lamar Jackson here on the other side of it and give you my keys for the Bills defense against Baltimore's offense. We'll do that here next. Folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing PrizePicks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in for the season. I love checking out the stat projections like Josh Allen for more or less than 270 passing yards, for Saquon Barkley, more or less than 1 rushing touchdown, for example. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. And of course, Mazda has won all the awards for safety, but they offer so much more than safety. You can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel, the smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. So whether it's a quick drive to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back, folks. I hope that you are planning to attend the Rally on the River. I'm going to be there. It's Saturday, September 6th at Buffalo River Works. It's going to be a big event. That place is awesome. And there's a lot going on, including myself doing a live podcast at 2 o'clock Eastern time. And I'll be there on both sides of it. You know, a few hours before, a few hours after. I want to hang out, spend time there, interact with, Bills Mafia. Thank you for listening, and spend some time there. Me and my wife are flying in on Friday, and we cannot wait to be part of this event on Saturday. September 6th, Buffalo River Works, Rally on the River. WGR will be there broadcasting live. The Mafia Boat Parade, Chalk Fest, which is super cool. Bounce houses, amusement rides, Bills players signing autograph. It is going to be incredible. Make it part of your game day weekend, and make sure you come by for the live pod. 2 o'clock Eastern time is when I will be starting. All right, folks, if you're looking for more details on that, go to thejoemarino.com. I have an event page where you can check out more details. The offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens is Todd Monken. He's 59 years old. It's his third season with the Ravens. Prior to being with Baltimore, he was the Georgia Bulldogs offensive coordinator 2020 through 2022. Last year, this offense was phenomenal. Third best scoring offense in the league. They averaged 30.5 points per game. They pass it 47% of the time. They run it 53%. They were number one in EPA per play on offense, first in EPA per pass, third in EPA per rush. They had the lowest stuff rate in the NFL. Converted 48% of their third downs. That's third best in the league last year, and the number one red zone offense at 74%. So just metrically, an unbelievably good offense last year for the Baltimore Ravens. So let's talk about their personnel. There's some different stuff going on here. Not much, but there's some changes. At wide receiver, their main guy, Zay Flowers, that's their number one weapon in the passing game. And the Bills avoided having to deal with him in that playoff game. He'll be ready to go for this one. Shifty, vertical speed, really good with the ball in his hands, route running. He's a dynamic playmaker, one of the upper echelon, up-and-coming young receivers in the league. His running mate is Rashad Bateman, who is a very crafty, bigger body, has some explosiveness, but a very, very good route runner. A guy that can really separate and get open, and he's got good ball skills and size. He's a good football player. Then they brought in DeAndre Hopkins. You know that guy. Now, look, it's not vintage DeAndre Hopkins, but I think it is a helpful player for this offense where he's able to provide Lamar a really attractive option with his off-script moments, right? I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, he's never been a dynamic athlete, but obviously late-stage DeAndre Hopkins, he's not super explosive, but he's crafty. He knows how to find space, and the ball skills are, top line. I think he's one of the best players of my lifetime in terms of ball skills, and that's still there. And so you think Lamar, you think off script, you find Hopkins and chuck it to him, and he's going to make some plays. Then beyond that, it's probably Tylan Wallace, who's been part of the mix in Baltimore for a while as a depth receiver that has some speed. Tight ends are a big part of their formula. Mark Andrews, still there. Obviously, he had some big blunders in that postseason loss to the Bills, but Mark Andrews is a good football player. He's been one of the better tight ends in the league for a while. He's a flex piece. Think Dalton Kincaid type player, the style of player. And, obviously I think he's looking out for some redemption, and the Bills will have to account for him. They likely won't have to account for Isaiah Likely, who's their number 2 tight end. That was you felt like he was gaining momentum to be their featured player there. I mean, when they throw him the ball, the results are really, really good, but he's working back from a broken foot hasn't practiced all week. And so I don't think they're going to have him at their disposal. They will have Charlie Kolar, who's their third tight end. Think your classic big-bodied number 3 tight end that can block a little, can catch a little, but, not super dynamic in any one category, but a very serviceable tight end 3. A fullback is part of their menu, Patrick Ricard. Patrick Ricard has not practiced. I'm recording this on Thursday afternoon, and he didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. It's looking like he's going to miss as well. And when you combine Isaiah Likely at tight end and Patrick Ricard at fullback as 2 players that won't be at their disposal, that's going to create some challenges for Baltimore structurally with the type of offense they want to be. They love to put bigger personnel on the field and, have extra bodies on the line of scrimmage and really create extra gaps. And when you have extra gaps to deal with, that's hard. And then it's Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry running behind it. It's very, very challenging. I think structurally this creates some challenges with them and the type of offense they want to be, especially with Patrick Ricard as a lead blocker and some of the run stuff. And he's an important part of their help in pass protection. So pretty notable potential losses for Baltimore if they don't have Likely or Ricard. At running back, Derrick Henry, do I need to tell you about this guy? He's 6'2", 250 pounds, runs 4.4, probably the best running back of the last 10 years in the NFL, and it feels like he's ageless. You can argue he probably just had his best season in Baltimore, and he's a load to deal with. And their depth, they've got Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell is a really explosive. Both of those guys are 4.3 running backs. So they've got 2 guys here with a lot of speed, and Keaton Mitchell's a guy to keep an eye on. He kind of caught lightning in a bottle and then got injured. Now he's back and he's looking good. I watched him in the preseason. And so they will get those guys involved. They'll get Justice Hill going on some wheel routes and get him down the field and challenge, linebackers to carry him vertically. And he's got 4.3 speed. So they got a very challenging backfield overall when you consider Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, and Keaton Mitchell. The offensive line, we've got one new starter here. Their left tackle is Ronnie Stanley. He's been a quality left tackle for a long time. Their left guard is an opportunity for Buffalo. Andrew Voorhees, a 2023 7th-round pick. Was a good college player at USC. He just had a ton of injuries. But he's expected to start here, and he's only played I think just over 200 snaps in his NFL career so far, and he's taking over at left guard where Patrick McCarry had been a fixture for them kind of in multiple spots, and he left in free agency to go to Jacksonville. And so Andrew Voorhees starts at left guard, and that could be an opportunity for the Bills to get some wins. Tyler Linderbaum is their center. I think he's one of the best 3 centers in the NFL. Not a big dude, but he's got a ton of range. He's technically sound. He gets after people, wins in space. He's a really, really high-quality center. Their right guard is Daniel Faalele, who's massive, 380 pounds. Can move bodies in the run game, but does not have the quickness and redirect ability to be consistent in pass protection. And so the Bills, with their quicker defensive tackles, should have some opportunities there. And then the right tackle is Roger Rosengarten, was a day 2 draft pick for them last year, became a rookie starter at right tackle, and looks like they have an answer there for years to come. I'm not sure he's going to be an elite player, but I think he'll be a good to above average starting right tackle in the NFL. So what are the keys that I have for the Bills defense against this Ravens offense? Number 1, you have to make Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry be special. Now, those are phenomenal players, and it can't be easy for them. Derrick Henry has had some explosive runs against the Bills, and you go back to that week 4 matchup, and that, Derrick Henry runs the ball, was like 86 yards in the first play, and Derrick Henry's unbelievable. But as I've said before, 100 other running backs would have scored a touchdown on that play. The Bills were outgapped. They didn't line up correctly, and they got blasted. And Derrick Henry just ran in a straight line for 86 yards and scored a touchdown. You can't give him that. You have to make him earn it. Lamar Jackson can pick you apart. Don't make it easy on him. Be sound. Get him out of rhythm. And so, I think the 5-man pressures have to be a big part of this equation. And I think when you're willing to do that and kind of load up on the run a little bit, make it a high traffic situation for Derrick Henry, that's going to give your best opportunity to contain them as best as you can. But ultimately, going back to what I said to start, make them be special. Make them be special. They can be. And if they're special and they beat you, okay. But it's frustrating for elite players like them to be highly productive against you and it not be hard. It needs to be hard for them. They can do it, but make it hard. Number 2 is you got to get Lamar Jackson out of rhythm. I think the 5-man pressures matter a ton. The Bills introduced the odd mirror look last year. I think you should be willing to tap into that, but also home field advantage. This is a Baltimore team that metrically is very, very good, but they are not immune to procedural issues. They are not immune to negative plays. And Bills Mafia's got to show up and do their 111th and be loud. Be loud and see if you can't help the Bills get Baltimore out of rhythm with crowd noise to help introduce some procedural issues and maybe even some negative plays to go with some schematic things that Bobby Babich can tap into. And then lastly, you got to win situational football, red zone and third downs. Those were sore spots for the Bills defense last year. They were not a good third down defense at all. They were a very average red zone defense. And so when you go back to last year, the Ravens were third best in third downs offensively. The Bills were 29th stopping third downs. So, boy, you better get better quick because that'll be a long day if you can't get off the field on third downs. And then the Ravens were the number 1 red zone scoring touchdown offense last year. The Bills were 16th in red zone defense. So you got to be better situationally, and you better figure it out quick because those were sore spots for the Bills defense, and those were bright spots for the Ravens offense, and that will be a big part in defining this matchup. So number 1, make Lamar and Derrick Henry be special. Number 2, get them out of rhythm. Number 3, win situational football. Let me go number 4 here. I think you got to find some opportunities to stress those guards. I think that's a weaker part of their operation offensively. You got an inexperienced player at left guard. You got a guy with, a very unique skill set at right guard. And you drafted these quick, explosive defensive tackles. It's time for them, to meet this moment at Oliver. TJ Sanders, Deion Walker. These should be good matchups for Buffalo's interior defensive linemen. And so I think putting some stress on those guards, winning those one-on-ones will matter a ton. And I mean, look, I think Rosengarten's a good player, but that should be a good opportunity for Rousseau. That should be a good opportunity for Bosa to get some wins against a young player. So the Bills D-line should have some opportunities, some matchup advantages. Go win them. All right, coming up next, the Ravens defense. What does Josh Allen and company need to do to score points and win the game? We'll break that down here next. Folks, be sure to stick with me. It's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more on every time you order. These players delivered when it matters most. Let's break it down. For the Bills, I want to talk about Tyrell Shavers. This guy delivered this offseason. 2 years on the practice squad after being an undrafted free agent out of San Diego State. And he puts it all together in year 3. He makes the initial 53-man roster. Talk about delivering and putting it all together. And just like Tyrell Shavers with the Buffalo Bills, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday that you order. So stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. All right, folks, welcome back. I would love for you to check out my Substack, the Herd Mentality Substack. If you're looking for more content out of me, I have it. I have written and film content that I do over at the Herd Mentality Substack. I've put together 2 pieces this week already. One that celebrates the first year of the Herd Mentality Substack. That was on September 3rd. So I sent out a piece that kind of talked about year 1 and let everyone know what I had planned for year 2. You can check out that article. And then the one that I dropped on Thursday was my 10 prevailing thoughts about the Bills entering this season. And so I broke down 10 different areas that are really weighing heavily on my mind with a lot of data and analysis. So if you're looking for additional written and film content from me, I have that for you. The Herd Mentality Substack, you can check that out over at thejoemarino.com. And if you join the Substack, you get into our Discord, and we've got almost 2,000 Bills fans in there, and we have a lot of fun in there. It's just a big organized group chat, talking Bills and NFL, what we're eating, all kinds of fun stuff. There's a movie club, a book club, all kinds of cool stuff. I go live every Wednesday night, and I do exclusive, Q&As. I did Joe Picks the Bills this Wednesday night. I went through every game in I gave a score prediction for every Bills game. So we do that type of stuff every Wednesday night. So that's an incentive for joining the Herd Mentality Substack. All the details over at thejoemarino.com. All right, the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, Zach Orr. He's 32 years old. It's his second season as the Ravens defensive coordinator. And, of course, he took over for Mike McDonald, who went and was the head coach in Seattle. And they got a lot better last year. It was a bumpy start for the Ravens defense, and then they made some big lineup changes. They benched Trenton Simpson. They got rid of Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson. They brought in Ardarius Washington at safety. They brought in Trey White. They did a lot of different things that improved their defense in season, and they righted the ship. And when it was all said and done, the Ravens last year were 9th in points per game. They allowed 21 points per game, 6th in EPA per play, 10th in EPA per pass, 2nd in EPA per run. They were middle of the pack on third down defense. They were 18th at 40%, and they were middle of the pack kind of in red zone defense as well, allowing a touchdown 54% of the time. That was 12th in the NFL. Let's talk about their personnel. Their down lineman, Nnamdi Madubuike, really good player. He's handsomely paid, really versatile in terms of making an impact as a run defender and a pass rusher. He's a very, very good pass rusher, excellent football player. Travis Jones, I think he's one of the best young nose tackles in the NFL. It's a contract year for him as well. Big, powerful, explosive. I'm a big fan of his game. And then Broderick Washington is kind of the glue guy to me for this defensive line. He's not a star, but he's a very solid two-gapper, long arm, stout player against the run. They got 3 good down linemen for a defense that's going to run a lot of odd fronts. Their edge rushers, Odafe Owe, a first-round pick a few years ago. He's improved steadily throughout his career. He's bulked up, and he's in a contract year as well. Kyle Van Noy, ageless, 34 years old, and he had 12 and a half sacks last year. He's been a really good player for Baltimore. He's given Spencer Brown some challenges, and I think the world of Spencer Brown, but Kyle Van Noy's been a player that's giving him a hard time from time to time. Tavius Robinson, I think he's a breakout candidate for Baltimore. Think athletic, long arms, heavy hands, really good contained player. I think he's primed for a breakout year. And then Mike Green, second-round pick. Some people thought he could be a first-rounder. Very, very explosive pass rusher. So they got a really deep group of edge rushers in Baltimore with some up-and-coming young players. At linebacker, Roquan Smith, one of the better inside linebackers in the NFL. Rangy, explosive, physical player. But his running mate, you have a big question here. It's Trenton Simpson. And last year, he was like a second-round pick a couple years ago, and they give him the opportunity to start last year. They bench him. They get way better when they bench him, and we're not talking about replacing him with like an A-level player. It was like Malik Harrison and Chris Board, and he's right back in this opportunity to start. And if it's not him, they have like a 4th-round pick out of Cal and a UDFA, so there's a lot on him, and that could be an opportunity for Buffalo. In the secondary, they've kind of made some changes here. Nate Wiggins, first-round pick from last year. He's back as a starter. Long. I mean, he's really long. Lean. Ball skills. He's a good-looking young corner. Then it's probably Jair Alexander opposite of him. Of course, long run with the Green Bay Packers. Had a ton of injury issues. Finds himself in Baltimore. And, there's some concern that maybe he can't go. He hasn't practiced a ton lately, but he has ramped up this week. If it's not him, it'll be Chidobe Awuzie, who's another good veteran corner. So between those two, I think they're going to be just fine opposite of Nate Wiggins and then Marlon Humphrey, who's one of the premier defensive backs in the NFL. He plays a lot in the slot. He can play outside. He tackles. He's really good ball skills. He's a stud. At safety, it's Kyle Hamilton, who just got the biggest contract ever for a safety in NFL history. He's special. He's not a rangy guy that's going to be this like one high center fielder, but he's a guy that can play in low alignments. He's an enforcer type, a very good tackler, can be that rat in the hole type defender. He's a special player. And then their 1st-round pick is Malachi Starks out of Georgia, a very versatile defensive back that has really good ball skills. He's his NFL debut, but I really like his skill level. So what are my keys for the Bills offense against this defense? Number one is attack Trenton Simpson. This is their guy that you look at and say, that's their problem. You got to go after him. And he's got a lot riding on him this year to prove himself and see what he's made of, because he's been a problem for them lately. Number 2 is work the ball to your running backs and tight ends. The Ravens last year conceded the most passing yards to running backs. They gave up the 3rd most yards to tight ends. And you've got James Cook and Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, who are all quality pass-catching backs. You've got Dalton Kincaid, who is supposed to be a really dynamic receiving tight end. Those players should be uniquely positioned to stress Baltimore. And I think they need to be a big part of your plan offensively. And then number 3 is kind of an elementary talking point, but I think it matters a lot. You have to understand the flow of the game. You actually heard Josh Allen this week come out and say, he was talking about the ups and downs of his week 1 performances, right? He's had 6 week 1 starts to this point, and 3 of them have been really good and 3 of them have been really bad. And he's talked about, his maturity and how he has to just let the game come to him. And, you can't score a touchdown on every play, and you have to, just believe that it's going to happen and not force it. And I think that's really important. I thought the Bills did an unbelievable job of that in the playoff win last year. It's not that the Bills went out and made all these dynamic, crazy good plays. It's that Baltimore was beating themselves, and the Bills understood the game script that was necessary to win that game. And I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair. But it might not be. It might not be. I think you have to understand how this game is going to be, going to play itself out within the context of playing the game and not force anything. This is not a game where you want to commit like back-breaking turnovers or go try to be the NFL MVP in week 1, which I think Josh Allen has been guilty of doing. Let this game just come to you. Play within the context of the game. And I think you'll have a good shot of being successful. So number 1, attack Trenton Simpson. Number 2 is work your your running backs and tight ends in the passing game. Number 3 is understand the flow of the game. And then I'll say this. I like the makeup of their secondary and really their back 7 in general, but they do not have a lot of reps together, right? You're talking about a new corner, right? Whether it's Alexander or Awuzie, that's a new player. Malachi Starks is a rookie. Trenton Simpson is a question mark. These guys don't really have a lot of reps together. You should be able to kind of work some route combinations and some passing game concepts that stresses a secondary that doesn't have much time on task together. So I think this is a game where I would not be afraid to really kind of open it up and throw the football and challenge a back 7 that doesn't have a lot of time together. Real quick on special teams, their kicker is no longer Justin Tucker. It's Tyler Loop, a rookie, 2025 6th-round pick. In preseason, he was 8 of 8 on extra points, 9 of 11 on field goals. Their punter is Jordan Stout. I think he's one of the best young punters in the league. Was a 4th-round pick in 2022. He's been excellent. Their kick returner is Keaton Mitchell and Justice Hill. Those guys are good. Those are both 4-3 athletes, explosive. So the Bills better be able to cover some kicks because these guys can really, rip off some long returns. And their punt returner is a rookie, but he's a good-looking rookie. LaJonte Wester, 6th-round pick out of Colorado, 5'11", 167, ran 4.5, but he had a punt return touchdown in the preseason. And in his college career, he averaged 11 yards per punt return and had 2 return touchdowns. So it's a big test for Chris Tabor and his special teams units in week 1. All right, folks, there you have it. The primer for Bills Ravens in week 1. Hopefully you feel really ready for this game. Hopefully you'll come to the Rally on the River. Hopefully you'll check out thejoemarino.com and check out my Substack and get that additional written and film content. We'll have one more podcast for you prior to Bills Ravens. We'll talk to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills about injuries, and I'll give you my 5 predictions for the game as well. That'll drop for you on Saturday morning. And then come on by to the Rally on the River, where I go live at 2 o'clock. All right, folks, that's it. Thanks for being here. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.